Now recently on the channel I took these two Salomon trail running shoes, the Sense Ride 5 and the Ultra Glide 2s, out for their first run, and I was actually really surprised after the updates they've had how similar they felt and performed out there on the trails. Since then I've run some good mileage in both shoes and I'm starting to notice a few subtle differences, and I definitely prefer running in one of the models more than the other. So let's dive into the video and find out which one of these popular Salomon trail running shoes comes out on top. Welcome back folks, and thanks for joining us for another video. I'm Lloyd Purvis and this is Run4Adventure. So you join us again in the studio for another comparison video, but this time round it's a slightly different head-to-head because we're actually looking at two trail running shoes from the same brand, Salomon. When you dive in a bit more detail, they've actually got a lot in common when it comes to the materials and the compounds used in the construction, but also the level of performance you get when it comes down to grip and traction from the outsole. So let's start off by giving you guys a few facts and figures about the two shoes. Firstly, the more affordable option out of the two shoes is the Sense Ride 5, retailing in the UK for £130, whereas the Ultra Glide 2s come in slightly more expensive at £140, but there's not a massive difference when it comes down to price. The same can be said about the weight. So the Ultra Glide 2s tip the scale at 310 grams, whereas the Sense Ride 5s come in at 305. I've got both in a UK 10, so I've gone up half a size in both models, and I find that they fit perfect when it comes down to length. The similarities continue as we take a closer look at that midsole construction. Firstly, with both models utilising Salomon's energy foam for cushioning, I would say maybe it is a slightly different blend of foam between the two shoes, and I think the Ultra Glides give you a slightly softer feel underfoot, and you get a bigger helping of the soft stuff in that midsole stack height. So we've got 32mm on the heel and 26mm under the forefoot, giving you a heel offset of 6mm, whereas the Sense Ride 5 gives you a slightly closer to the ground stack height of 29.6mm to be precise under the heel, and 21.6mm under your forefoot, giving you a slightly higher heel offset of 8mm. Also, the Ultra Glides feel like they've got a little bit more sort of rocker geometry worked into that midsole setup, or as Salomon like to call it, reverse camber technology. Definitely feels a bit more efficient when I've been out there on my longer runs. They both come with a pretty basic insole inside the shoe, which, if I'm honest, doesn't really offer you a lot of anything. And I think the Salomon brand really need to up their game when it comes to their insoles to keep up with the likes of Saucony, Innovate and Norda. Moving on to the two uppers, and I think this is actually an area where you do start to feel some differences between the two models, and most noticeably is the level of padding you get around the ankle collar in the heel and in the gusseted tongue of the Ultra Glides. There is a fair bit more padding in that tongue when you compare it to the more stripped back tongue in the Sense Ride 5, and in fact this feels just more stripped back in general. That engineered mesh feels a bit lighter, feels a bit airier, and maybe the Sense Ride 5 upper does offer you a bit more breathability. Both uppers have a fair amount of structural overlays in place, so starting at the heel, working down to the midfoot and then wrapping around that toe box, just to give the shoes a bit more substance and durability. They both come with Salomon's brilliant quick lace cord system, so no sort of traditional shoelaces in either shoe, and unfortunately they also both come with that poorly designed tongue pocket. I'm really not sure what Salomon were thinking of when they came to that design. It is really awkward to get the laces in, although it is a little bit easier in the Sense Ride 5s. And then finishing up, you get a really good level of toe protection from a nice substantial toe bumper in both shoes. And last but not least, let's take a closer look at the outsole construction, and that pattern continues, surprisingly enough. We've got lots of similarities crossing over between the two trail shoes here. So both of them have got a 3.5mm multi-directional lug pattern with some nice reverse facing lugs on the heel. Salomon have chosen to utilise their all-terrain Contour Grip rubber to give you a good level of grip on a variety of surfaces, and we got some nice underfoot protection worked into that midsole in the shape of a Pro Film shield. So you can see again, lots of things in common when it comes down to the midsole. So you can now see what I meant at the beginning of the video, that these two updated Salomon trail shoes are quite similar when it comes down to construction and performance. And I'm not really sure what the brand was trying to achieve there, because what it's basically done is it's left them with two shoes in their trail running lineup that are kind of competing against each other when it comes to the type of terrain and the type of underfoot conditions they can run. Although saying that, I still feel that they do run slightly differently. So let's break down the performance of the Ultra Glide 2s and the Sense Ride 5s in a bit more detail. Firstly, I think the addition of a deeper stack of energy foam in that midsole construction on the Sense Ride 5 was a great move from the brand. I think with the world of running shoes seeming to get softer and softer, midsoles getting bouncier and bouncier, Salomon were kind of getting left behind on the cushioning front. So I think with them making this the softest, most cushioned version of the shoe to date was a great move, but it definitely has brought the performance and the underfoot feel of the two shoes a lot closer. But I still have to say it, I prefer the feel of the Ultra Glide 2s when it comes to that midsole, just offering me a deeper stack of cushioning, giving me a bit more comfort and energy return, especially out there on those longer runs. But I also feel that I got a fair bit more sort of forward propulsion from that slightly more rocket geometry on the midsole. But I have to say it was very close between the two shoes. Outsole performance has kind of been exactly the same. I haven't really noticed any difference when it comes down to grip and traction, and to be fair, that hasn't come as a surprise, with both of those outsole designs almost being identical. So both shoes have handled the dry trails down here in Cornwall really well, whether they've been rocky, compacted or loose. Obviously with them both coming with a 3.5mm lug depth, I wouldn't say they're a massive fan of muddy conditions, and they can struggle and you do slip and slide around a bit. To be fair, not as bad as I thought they'd be, but I think they would definitely perform better in those muddy conditions with maybe a 4 or 5mm lug depth on that outsole, or maybe just on one of them, and at least that would stand the two trail shoes apart. And moving on to upper performance, and this is actually an area between the Sense Ride 5s and the Ultra Glide 2s where they do actually feel quite different when you're out there running in them. For me, it's been really hard to notice any difference between the midsole and outsole setup when it comes to performance, but I really have noticed a difference in the uppers, and I personally prefer the feel and fit of the Ultra Glides. I think having a little bit more padding in that gusseted tongue on the Ultra Glide, it just seems to fit my midfoot a little bit better, and I can achieve a better lockdown, whereas with the Ride 5s, I do have to pull those laces down quite tight to get a similar feel and fit. However, that does come with a bit of sacrifice to breathability. Having that extra padding in the tongue, extra padding in the upper, you definitely notice it, because the Sense 5 does have a bit more airflow and does feel a little bit more breathable to run in. However, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of breathability. At the end of the day, I live in the UK and it never gets too hot here, so I'm willing to sacrifice a bit of breathability just to feel more connected to the shoe. Talking about fit, I've got both models in a standard version, and I wouldn't call either of these trail shoes a wide fitting upper, but I think the Sense Ride 5 does give you a little bit more width and a little bit more volume in the toe box. However, Salomon do offer the Ultra Glide 2s in a width option if you feel you need more space, more volume in the toe box. As far as I could tell, I couldn't see if they offered the Sense Ride 5 in that option. I don't think they do. However, you can get both models in a waterproof version if you need it. So wrapping up with a quick conclusion, and I think it's a real solid update this time round for the Sense Ride. I think Salomon have made the shoe a lot more comfortable and a lot more versatile all at the same time. You still get that kind of traditional Sense Ride feel from the upper construction, but that new Energy Surge midsole definitely delivers a more comfortable and more protected feel underfoot. As far as the update to these, if we can actually call it an update, because not a lot has changed when you take a look at this compared to the original model, there's just been a subtle update made to the upper. The midsole and outsole are identical, and that's not a bad thing for me because I really enjoyed running in the original Ultra Glides, and I've also enjoyed the performance of these and maybe enjoyed these a little bit more than these. But I have to say it, both shoes are very similar. I think having a little bit more padding and plushness in that upper, for me, being able to get a better lockdown around my midfoot, but also having a deeper stack height of cushioning and that rocker geometry. So the Ultra Glide feels a little bit more comfortable and a little bit more efficient over longer distances. That means in our head-to-head video between these two popular trail running shoes from Salomon, the Ultra Glide 2 is going to take my top spot. So there you have it, folks, another comparison video crushed here at Run4Adventure. Really hope you enjoyed it, really hope you found it helpful. You know what to do if you did, guys. Smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Only takes a second to do just by clicking on that little red box down there, and it is completely free, but it is a massive help. If you would like to see any more sort of trail running shoes or road shoes, given the sort of Run4Adventure comparison video treatment, then get in the comments below and let us know which ones. But until next time, guys, thanks for watching, thanks for supporting the channel, it really is appreciated. We'll be back here very, very soon, and as always, stay safe and keep on running. Outsole performance has kind of been the same, and quite a bit more padding compared to the more stripped back Sense 5 ride. Firstly, with both shoes utilising salmons. Yeah, it's got salmon. It's got salmon worked into the upper construction just to make it a little bit more water repellent.